Now we can test to see if I can reach my router. So to do that, I need to open a command prompt. To open the command prompt, I click the Start button. I type in the search field CMD, and that will bring up my command prompt. Let's make that full screen. And now let's test. So the way I test is I use this application called Ping. Ping stands for, unfortunately or comically or whatever, the Packet Internet Groper. So it's for groping internet packets. Ideally here, the whole idea of ping is the name of it also came out of sonar, like submarine sonar, where we're sending out sound waves in the water that bounce off of objects and tell us what's out there. This ping message is the same idea in networking. We're going to send a message out to the other device to see if it can respond to a message. So I'm going to ping my router, which is 10.0.0.1. Now I'm sending this message from my workstation itself. I'm in the command prompt, CMD, not in PuTTY. PuTTY here is where we're actually connected to the router itself. I'm in the command prompt, which is connected to the PC that I'm working on. So if I say ping 10.0.0.1 and press enter, looks like I have great success here. I get 4 replies from 10.0.0.1. This means I have connectivity to my router. Outstanding. This is exactly what I was aiming for. So let's close my command prompt. And I'm actually going to close my COM session here of PuTTY as well. So we'll shut that down. And I'm going to open a new session, but this time, instead of using serial in PuTTY, I'm going to open it with Telnet. So in Telnet, I have to specify the IP address that I want to connect to, which is 10.0.0.1, which is my router's IP address. I hit open, and it immediately asks me for a password. And notice my banner message of the day is right up there at the top. This router is owned and operated by TrainSignal. Visit trainsignal.com for help. So I put in my password, which was Cisco here. Brings me to user mode. Enter enable. Put my password in to get to privilege mode. I am now connected to my router with Telnet. Now this is exactly what I wanted to accomplish. What I've done here is I have put a base configuration on the router. That involved securing the 3 user mode access methods with a password. That was line con 0, line aux 0, line VTY 0 through whatever number you want. I chose 4 to give me 5 lines. Then we set a password to get from user mode to privilege mode. That was the enable secret. After that, we changed the host name of our router and we set up the banner. And then last, we configured the interface on the router with an IP address. We issued the no shutdown command to bring it up. And now the very last step is we configured our workstation with an IP address so that we could then test using the ping application to see if our IP address on our router was available and active. And then last, we used PuTTY to telnet into the router to gain access. We can now do our configuration via telnet instead of the serial connection. The big advantage of doing your configuration over telnet or SSH is that it is much, much, much faster to interface with the router. When you're doing it over the serial port, it's a much slower connection than it is with telnet. Before we end this video, I want to show you how to save your configuration just in case you want to reuse this later. So the way we save our configuration is we enter a copy command. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the file that's currently stored in RAM, and that file is called running-config. We're going to take that file and we're going to copy it to a different file. And the other file we're going to copy it to is called startup-config. And startup-config is located in NVRAM, and it's the file that's used during the router boot up process to load a configuration file. So if startup configuration file is present, it will actually load that during the router boot up. If it is not present, it will ask you to enter the initial configuration dialog, just like we saw when I first logged into my router. When I issue copy running config startup config, it takes a copy of the running config file, saves it as startup config file. Now when I reboot my router the next time, this configuration file will load. One last piece here about this command. Anytime we have brackets in our question that we're being asked, it's saying destination file name, and then in brackets here it says startup-config. This is the default selection for that particular request. So startup-config is our default file name that we can use. We can just press enter and it will save it as a startup config. So my startup configuration file is saved now. I can verify that by issuing show startup-config, and it shows me my configuration file that I had written in the running configuration file, copied it, and saved it to the startup configuration file. This concludes our video. I look forward to seeing you in future train signal videos. Thanks.